Are your actions creating deep layers of trust with your team or creating conflict, confusion, and a lack of productivity in how you approach and how you communicate? That is our next episode on It's Personal, Not Business. So let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the PNB Nation, where it is all personal, not business. I'm your host, Mr. Rico, and I will be your guide through all things people and give you in-depth insights, strategies, and the secrets to behavioral dynamics to creating a common language for understanding people in and out of the workplace. So let's get started. I recently just did a podcast with a gentleman who asked a really good question. How important is internal trust to an organization, especially for leaders of high-performing teams? So I wanted to look up, what is the definition of trust? Well, according to the dictionary, trust is simply to rely on another person because you feel safe with them and have confidence that they will not hurt or violate you. Now let's take a look at the workplace for a moment. How often do we truly feel that 100%? And if you are a leader listening to this podcast right now, or HR director or business owner, it is really important to really identify what we do and how we do it. Is it always building trust? Because what I found more often than not, unknowingly, how we say things, how we incorporate things actually erode trust because we have not taken the time to pay attention, to have a conversation, to understand the inside of our team dynamics and the environment that we're in. One of the key areas that when leaders introduce a new initiative, new CRM, a new individual, a new concept, it is really important to know that you are disrupting what they have created as a comfort zone. For them, they have built a structure or a mechanism, a culture that some things are predictable. So when you introduce something into that and don't give clarity as to why is necessary, how it benefits them, and how to implement it into what's normal for them, you are going to create a storm. And in that storm, three things occur. And most leaders find themselves in this cycle without knowing that they're in the storm. So the first thing that you do when you introduce something new or not communicate it clearly in a manner that they understand it, meaning your team, there's confusion. Why are we doing this? Where did this come from? What is expected of me? What I've been doing is working, so why is this necessary? All those questions start to happen. And if we don't address those questions or even consider them strategically before something new was introduced, especially if you're a brand new leader and have new ideas, when there's confusion, anxiety goes up. Anxiety is because I don't know what the end goal is. I have no way of preparing myself for whatever this new thing is. And honestly, I don't know even why we're doing it. And when anxiety isn't defined and when anxiety isn't addressed through confusion, you create conflict. This is where you get the pushback, productivity drops, especially if you're a new leader with a team that has been established. This is why you get a struggle for them to see you and respect you. Remember, when we're talking about trust, we are really talking about, do you make them feel safe? Is what we're doing in an alignment to what I have been accustomed to doing? Is that because what I do, it's predictable. So if you don't address confusion, which leads to anxiety, and anxiety isn't addressed, which leads to conflict, this is where lack of trust starts to occur. Lack in trust in yourself, lack in trust in the organization, lack in trust in whatever initiative, process, system, or individual you are introducing into this ecosystem. And the greater the lack of trust there is, the more doubt is created. doubt in that this is going to work. So therefore they sandbag, don't do things, they get pushback, you get rebellion, or they start to find ways to prove it wrong. This is where chaos is created. And when you have chaos, now you have all of the inmates taking over the asylum. So how do we avoid this? As leaders, how do we know we're constantly building trust, we're constantly adding value, but when we do need to make changes, because leaders are forward thinking and they may see certain situations that need to be addressed even before the team understands this, that's why you're the leader. How do we communicate in a manner they see the value? Step number one, find your advocates, or find the ones that are the biggest influencers of the team. Have a meeting with them and explain to them why you think this is necessary. Not to get their approval, but to get some ideas on how to execute it and implement it in a way that the team gets buy-in and sees the value in it. You're now bringing the bigger voices that are either going to be your greatest advocates or the ones who are going to poison the well because they don't want to disrupt what's comfortable to them. Step number two, before you even execute, bring the team together and communicate to them what you're doing, why you're doing it, but here's the most important one, how it benefits them. If you're introducing something new, it's because it is going to enhance their abilities, not just because the organization requires it, but how does it enhance them? Just like a customer, you need to answer the question, what's in it for me? Or more importantly, the why. Remember, one of our previous podcasts, I think it was number 3, the why leads to the how we do. How do we do this? So if you want buy-in, you have to get some clarity and feedback. And then number 3, depending on the size of your initiative or what you're doing, give it to them in small chunks. Allow them to test it within what's comfortable and adding something new. It does take a little bit longer, but when you have an open door or feedback loop of, we're going to do this, but I want to find the best way that works for you, give me some input, some feedback on how we can improve it. Now you have buy-in. They've been part of what you expect them to do and how to improve it. So first and foremost, we want to start to avoid confusion. We want communication, consistent, clear, ongoing communication, not in one direction, meaning you to them, but a two-way street, feedback to improve. Next, a clear plan on how you're going to do that. How are we going to grow, or how are we going to communicate? Make sure that you bring in your advocates to create that flow of communication where they communicate to your direct reports and direct reports to you, so you're not having to spend more time. And finally, and by far the most critical piece, be clear. Clarity is simple. Here's step 1, and here's why we're doing it, how it benefits you, and what's expected. Be clear in every stage of the game, meaning that you have to be clear into what's important to them, but also clear in what's expected, and again, the why. So as leaders, make sure that you're constantly building trust through the number one tool that I see most leaders fail is in communication and exploring that why. As you build trust, you are going to be able to design how people feel safe and making sure that they will not feel hurt or that their own ideas of success is not derailed. So always think about how can I make them feel confident, heard, and validated as we introduce some of these things. Hope that was helpful. Please apply these. Make sure that you leave the comment below, subscribe, because that helps us to reach more people. And if you truly enjoyed this, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode.